Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ, and yes, you did guess correctly. It is magic, sheesh. Mummy, the Resurrection. Woo. We will be showing off the second. They call it the second edition, but technically it's like a second printing with some cleanup. But this is a bit of a cheat. As we travel around the world and try to find games that have a culture and history and regional emphasis of where it came from, this being ancient to modern Egypt. But yes, we're going to talk about mummies on this one. But first, everyone, please gather your snacks and I did not see Anders playthrough of this game. But yeah, anyway, gather snacks, wait for the intro, come on back, just prepare. Let's page through this thing and then talk about, of course, how we can pull from it. And then allow me after the intro to make a point about some of these games as well. Welcome back, everyone. So, yeah, I couldn't find. I was trying to find the logo banner for the second edition printing of it, and I couldn't find it, or rather, I couldn't find one with a high enough res, so I had to use the. And I actually have both of them. I have the wow. I've got the. I no longer have the first edition. I've got the sand-covered one, I guess you want to call it, and then I've got this the black and green colored one. It's White Wolf is going through so many iterations as wow. Yeah. That's funny. That's funny. So before we start to get into the depths of this game, I did want to point out, and I slightly mentioned it before, about how these games, what I'm discovering with these games is that when you find a game that really embraces the history and mythology and the regional aspects of a particular culture, that it has a great impact on being able to get rid of spectacle creep. So spectacle creep is a movie term of phraseology that talks about in order to make something better, you just make it bigger. And our classic Dungeons and Dragons, it absolutely embraces this idea that, well, to make things more exciting, we're just going to make things bigger. And while that works temporarily, at a certain point, some of us in our gaming history realize that just because numbers go big does not mean it makes things better. So an example would be, and we've seen this in video games as well, where, okay, you fight, your first level Dungeons and Dragons, you fight a bunch of rats or goblins and you think that's dangerous. And we just make the goblins bigger and we just make the rats bigger and the numbers get bigger. So my numbers might be +2, +3, and then my numbers turn to be +10, but then the bad guys are +10. And then it's just this ever increasing cycle of we climb up the ladder or the steps, and then the bad guys climb the same ladder and steps. And on a very simplistic level, sure, you can have some fun with it, but after a certain point, it's like, it's very external and it's not really tied to anything. And what I'm finding in these games, and mind you, this mummy game, it's a bit of a cheat because clearly this was made at a period of time that probably didn't have many, if any, individuals from Egypt to help designed this game, and I know over time the World of Darkness was corrected by having individuals in the game to delete and move around and correct some of the historical references. Mind you, this is World of Darkness, so it's not an accurate representation. It is a dark reflection of a particular time period and culture. But what I'm finding in these games is that whether we are in ancient Aztec, or we are, navigating across a indigenous First Nation of the pre-colonial United States cyber punk world, or so on and so forth, that we have goals and traditions and important motivations that are not easily accelerated, to the point of spectacle creep, right? Where it's not just one dragon, we have to have 7 dragons. It's not just a threat to a nation, it's a threat to the world. Okay, now a threat to the multiverse, whatnot. Instead, a lot of these games have an importance with community, with your personal travel, personality wise, dealing with a much more introspection, survival, and things like that. Yeah, yeah. Hey, what's the other game? You're talking about Cyan. It's the Exalted system, the whole Exalted, the Dragon Blooded, the Abyssals. Yeah, yeah, that was a bucket of D10s as well. Yeah, I don't know which one is which there, Drew. Yeah, I have this version in the hard copy form, and then I've got the sand colored one, and I used to have the classic green, uh, emerald green colored version of this game, but I think it got like fruit punch spilled on it or something like that. But whatever the case may be, um, we are going to take a look at this game, and mind you, while I am promoting many of these games, I am promoting the idea that it doesn't always have to be Dungeons and Dragons, and maybe we can learn a couple of things and go, oh, maybe I want to bring something like this into the game. Again, with the credits and a special thanks, I didn't I didn't see anything poke out to me that it's generally from somebody from this region. So it is a bit of a cheat. And if there are things in the game that are just like, oh, maybe that's a little problematic and not accurate, please don't blame me. This is the game in general, and we're learning from it. So we're grasping things from it for our own world building. So, what is Mummy the Resurrection anyway? Mummy the Resurrection, of course, this is the fluff. This is a storyline to get you into the game, but essentially, it is a game of immortals fighting against evil, and you are coming back through cycles of living in the mortal world and falling into the world of the undead, going through trials and tribulations, many of them emotional and personality wise, to return to the world of the living to fight against evil. Now, is it exactly that? No, you can change it up quite a bit, but essentially you are a fragmented immortal being fighting against evil. And here we have a number of what the mood and themes are about, and some books that you can read that they used for creating this game, and some movies and such. A lot of the older movies, like 1932, um, The Mummy, The Mummy's Hand, the Mummy Hammer movies from 1959, Curse of the Mummy's Tomb, The Mummy's Shroud, 67, 64, 67, 71. But whatever. And it's a World of Darkness game, so mixing in vampire, werewolf, mage, wraith, changeling, and some of the other versions, what became far more common. I know when we in our group we mixed it together, like almost immediately. So the fragmented personality part of this, if you know of a Netflix television show called Travelers, you would understand this. And that is a fragment of the immortal known as the Shemsu Heru or the Amenti. I like the word Amenti, but or I guess you could repronounce it. I don't know. I'll just call them the Amenti. The Amenti are the immortals, and your fragmented spirit can inhabit a human being that has some sort of limitation. A fragment of their soul is weakened or frail or something. Maybe they have an addiction or going through guilt or suffered some kind of mental trauma, and you merge with them, and then you come into the real world. And that's the in-world excuse for not necessarily always being of Egyptian culture, that you can be anyone from around the world. This second edition does include mummies that are not from Egyptian lore, that you might be a mummy from other cultures. And so this is the version that kind of included those when they originally made the game and then made a second edition of it. But there's definitely a war against Apophos and Set, the worm, whatever you want to call it, the big evil, and you are an immortal being fighting against that. And then, of course, we have the underworld, where your soul may go back into the underworld, especially if you are, air quotes, killed. You will really never die. But what happens is you'll go into the underworld, and then you fight against magi and mortals, and there are more hunters and things like that. So in this game, and then there's the lexicon. Chapter 1 gives us a history of where you came from and why the hell you even exist, and maybe you don't remember much. And this is also a way for the players who don't know much about the background or even ancient Egypt and whatnot. Yes, you can play a character who doesn't know where the hell you came from, and this is the version of it. We do have a pronunciation guide, Egyptian versus Greek. So while I will be using the Greek versions of the pronunciations, they do say, well, technically those were anglicized, basically, words like using Osiris and Isis and Horus and whatnot, whereas we do have the Egyptian versions as well. Isis fragments. Osiris, the Egyptian god, his body was broken into pieces, and Isis helped bring those pieces back together, and so the player characters are kind of similar to that. And then the player characters are like warriors for evil in many ways, and so it's like you're an agent of Horus, the Avenger, and fighting evil when you become resurrected. And then talks about the spell of life and the great rite that brought you back and made you immortal, and maybe or maybe not you remember what that was, and also finding others who are like you, and the corrupted version of that rite of life that brought you back might have brought some other people back that probably didn't deserve it. And the television show and the movie The Highlander is very much like how this game and they kind of suggest it is played, where in a modern context, first let me go to some of your comments here, and then we'll go to the Highlander cycle, the television show, which was kind of fun. 40, 60, 10. It's so silly. It says, well, ancient Egypt is so far removed from us that I am fine with not having people too close associated with it. I mean, Cleopatra's closer to us than the pyramids. Yep. And that's also this is weird to say. History is like jazz, where sometimes we have to fill in the gaps with our own rhythms because we really don't know. And so the more ancient it is, and of course, in real life, there are real historians that are still to this day trying to gather together ancient ancient manuscripts and things like that, that it allows us to kind of like wash over the fuzzy parts. And of course, unless you're literally playing the game in ancient Egypt and not in a modern day, it really doesn't matter. First thing, oh, that brings back memories. Yeah. First thing my group did was mix them all together like a soda bucket at 7-Eleven. I just remember being a kid and just making a mess by going over to the soda pop dispensary and just like mixing the drinks together. Like, what's good to mix it? Now we have the freestyle machines where you can mix your own flavors together. But I just remember back in the day doing that. The only thing that never dies is Cobra Kai. I have not delved into that show, and I wish I have. I mean, I still can. It's not like I can't, but Cobra Kai. Yeah, isn't regaining your memories a big part of the mummy's objective in the game? Yes. Okay, so one of the big cycles in this game that reminds me of the television show, which is great, television show of Highlander, is this. All right, so Immortal of the Week. Okay, so in the Highlander television show, who remember Highlander, there could only be one, he was immortal. And they would have a modern day problem happen. The Highlander would see someone from his past. Someone from his past would cause some kind of disruption in his business life, in his personal life, in the NPCs that surrounded him, whatever. And they would see each other. And then we would see what the problem is or crime that's happening. And then we would have commercial break. And when we come back, we flash backwards into the ancient past. And when we flash back to the ancient past, we see what the relationship was between the Highlander and this other immortal. Usually the other immortal was an asshole. They were usually evil in some kind of way, more generally, or were pushed to make a decision that fragmented their relationship. And then, commercial break, we come back to present day, and now we get to see these immortals come together after a 200-year, 400-year, 700-year, 2,000-year break, and where that conflict happens. And then they fight each other. Highlander cuts off the person's head, gets the quickening, and then it's like the monster of the week kind of thing. But one of the interesting parts of the storyline was that we get to see an ancient iteration and the modern day iteration of these immortals. So when a particular action happened in the past, our morality and ethics at that time might have been different than the modern day. And when it comes to regaining your memories as an immortal, it's like, dare I say, it's like having a character sheet, but you haven't filled out your past. And when you confront some of these adversaries in the game, what you're doing is you're filling in the gaps of your past. So you might have an adversary who remembers you, but you don't remember them. And then through the course of play, and of course a little meta knowledge, you remember, oh, they did cause a landslide and left me there to die. Oh, that is right. They pushed me onto the slaver's ship and let me get taken away in chains while they waved from the shoreline laughing or something. Oh, they did murder my loved one, even though I know I can never have a true love because I will always outlive them. They were there to try to teach me a lesson about, more how frail mortal life is, and killed them in front of me or something. And through the cycle of the game, you start creating this tapestry of what your ancient life was. And you could flash back to any period of time you like, and kind of like zigzag, right? You could go back to 2000 BC, and then 700 AD, and then go back to 100 AD, and then forward to 1500, whatever. And then of course a lot of times, especially in the television show and with this game, you could reflect back to historical events. The world of darkness very much is supposed to be a dark reflection of our own histories. So while a very mortal thing may have happened here, in the world of darkness, usually some dark force had something to do with it. Vampires, mages, werewolves, or something like that. An ancient curse, a maelstrom of shadow and darkness, or something affected someone, or something. An ancient ritual, or what have you. A demon, a fiend might have gotten involved in that particular event that caused the loss of life and liberty. And so the you, when you play an immortal, are one of those individuals. We'll get into some of your abilities in just a minute. um, there are other sectors, sects, or clans. The world of darkness really embraced factions. In Dungeons and Dragons, you always hear about some of the best practices are factions, and world of darkness love their factions. And so it's not like, oh, there's only mummies or the Amenti or Shemsu Heru. It's not just you and then bad guys. It's like there are different variations of you. They're the Ishmaelites and all these other individuals. And so, yeah, you could do a wiki search as well and look up the different factions. Here's an image of an evil, or at least I'm presuming this is some artwork for an evil immortal, and children of Apophos. You know, the dark reflection of immortality, and no, your ethics and morality can go out the window when you realize, like, oh, the what's the animated show, Invincible, and Invincible's dad, you know. And Invincible's dad is just like murder killing human beings, like they're like pets to us. Oh, that cartoon. Oh my goodness, I love it. I love it. I love the because the not the animated. I'm sorry, the animated version of that cartoon and the graphic novels are similar in the art style. Like the art style is very colorful and simplistic, and then you have like blood and organs spilled everywhere and teeth falling off people's heads. It's pretty brutal. And the same thing here. This talks about the Egyptian diaspora, how you have people from around the world, and especially from the States, because these games were produced here in the United States. So how do you play one? And then it talks about how their spirits have scattered and been shredded, and then are trying to come back together. And according to this book, the while we think of the spirit or the soul as being one, in Egyptian mythology, your spirit are many different fragments that come together as one. Um, Here is the world of Mummy, and it talks about the codes and the different factions, the Kabiri, the children of Apophos, and then at the end of all of these, there are like they always have these little stereotype things, basically like, what does the faction think of everybody else? And that's the same, and that goes across all the World of Darkness books, like vampires. Like, well, if you're from this vampire clan, what does the vampire clan in general think of everyone else? The Ishmaelites are like the ones who've stepped out of the war. They're like, I'm not doing this anymore. The Shemsu Heru. This is the also known as the Amenti. That's you as a player character for the most part. There's others here, and this is the 2-page spread on like the Code of Horus. This is where like you're battling for life and liberty, like an immortal knight or samurai, or someone has taken a code of honor to fight against evil. And then we have our breakout box, the harsh reality of what like, great, that sounds good, but what does it really mean in the real world? And it talks about that. Like, for example, the code is, I am Horus, your father, the first among reborn. Heed my words always. Combat the minions of Apophos in all their diverse forms at all times, for they are the opponents of Ma'at. consort not with the accursed, for they are the brood of Apophos. Acknowledge your kinship in Ma'at with one another. Never shall one of the Shemsu Heru turn away another in need. And let not a mortal worship you, for the time of gods is past, nor let the mortal populace learn of our existence. And it's like, well, do people really fall in? I don't know. But yeah. And then that's where the conflict comes in, right? So one person could be a player character like, yeah, I'm like an immortal warrior. And other people are like, I'm just trying to live my life, as long as it may be. Other creatures, vampires, werewolves, what they call the changing breeds. There's werewolves, but there are other books that have were-cats and the Makole, which are like were-crocodiles, and as well as in werewolf there is the silent striders, and they are the desert-dwelling werewolves. They are the jackals. I believe they're like humanoid jackals. Talks about the Fae, mortals, the cult of Isis, the Arcanum. The Arcanum is like the in the Highlander television show, The Watchers. They are the ones that collect knowledge about the dark world. The Orphic Circle, the Society of Scholars, another one. And the Society of Leopold. Ancient Hunters. We get in the world of Mummy, and talks about the different around the world, right? Europe, the Americas, universities, museums, Egypt, what's going on there, because it's just a little bit general overview so you can create your own stories. And then we get into character creation. So let me get to the character creation page. Very common in a World of Darkness. We always have a what's the simplest way to start creating a character, and we give an outline here. In Mummy the Resurrection, unlike the other games, there's always something that like makes that game stand out a little bit. And there are two things. One is your identity. So you will have like your name, your known name to everybody else. So you might have your name, what you were in the ancient past, your name today, what they call you, your true name. So true names are a form of magic in Mummy the Resurrection. And so learning the true name of trees or learning the true name of automobiles or something like that allows you to have control over that. And if you have a true name, someone who learns your true name can have control over you. There's also your birth year, like literally the biological year you were born, and then what your apparent age is, because you might be older if you were given the rite of the ritual of immortality at a different age. So you might look like you're in your teens or your 30s or late 40s or something like that. And lastly, you still have virtues and whatnot, and your different paths of magic known as Hekau or Heiku, and different types of magic. Train. Yeah, Thanos. I don't even know who you are. According to the movies, Thanos was more of a badass 10 years prior to getting the stones than he was with the stones. I think he was a little tired. Different morality and ethics. So having your wife murder killed so she can be buried together with you is frowned upon these days. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly, right? Like maybe you might not want to do that today, when in the ancient past maybe it was an accepted practice, right? So yeah, you could absolutely positively have that. Like I mean, imagine if your character was one that was like, telling your loved one, run before they kill you and bury you with me, even though that was an accepted practice back then, and someone can say, you did the wrong thing. So here we talk about the soul here's a breakout box, and talks about the different fragments of the soul. And also, gaming wise, this allows you to engage in different things. Like maybe one part of your soul is fighting off the guilt of something you did in the ancient past, where another part of your soul is defending your mortal body as it tries to regrow itself. Or maybe even another third part of your soul is trying to find a fragmented human being that you can inhabit so that you can come back to the mortal realm and live your life. And like the television show Travelers, so real quick, the television show Travelers is about time travelers, and they travel from the far future, which has been devastated, to the past and take over the mind of someone who has just died. And depending on how they just died, gives a clue as to some of the behaviors and traits when the character comes back to life at the moment they died. And you can play a character that way. So for example, maybe there is a drug addict who has just OD'd, and just at the moment they're about to OD, your ancient character takes over their body. So maybe you are this ancient warrior, but now you have a drug addiction issue as well, because you've taken over this fragmented being's personality. You can also have some not comedic elements, but like conflict elements where you may know this human being's history, but you don't have any emotional attachment to it. But at the same time, you may have a need to fix this human being's life. So what drew them to become a drug addict, as an example? What offenses have you done to the family? And then of course you're being drawn away from this immortal battle against evil, and you're like, oh, do I really have to fix this human being's life? And that may be part of your a greater goal for your mind and soul to pass on, so that you may not have to be in this fight evil for the rest of your life, eternity. Maybe it's fixing one life at a time. And so you can have storylines that involve that. These are pages of what I love about World of Darkness. If you could steal something for World of Darkness. So World of Darkness doesn't have an alignment system. Instead, it has a nature and demeanor system. So your nature is what you are internally, and it doesn't really change. Your demeanor is what you show to the outside world. And they have all of these identifiers. Embalmer, courtier. We haven't gotten to those. These are types of characters. My fault. But what I like about the nature demeanor system, I'm mixing and matching things, is that it's how you regain willpower, and willpower is what you spend to gain successes. And I like that. These are different types of mummies that you can be. These are just examples, suggestions, right? A general, governor, magician, merchant, embalmer, entertainer, doctor, courtier, sailor, thief. Now, mind you, in a modern context, you may have been, back in the day, maybe you were a pharaoh or a embalmer or a servant or a slave. But in the modern day, you might not be. And confronting someone, for example, let's do a pharaoh / slave relationship, right? And if we have that, you may have once been under the enslavement of someone else, but in the modern context, that evil pharaoh, let's say, is living homeless on the street, and you are a very rich entrepreneur. What do? Do you treat them? Do you punish this person who did that to you? Do you go through a sense of forgiveness? Maybe the bad guy who was the pharaoh thinks that they still have some kind of power over you, and maybe psychologically they do. Or you're reminded of a time where you don't want to remember those periods of time, and so on and so forth. So then we have talents. Yeah, here we go. Here are the natures and demeanors. We do have them. Nature and demeanor. The reluctant reborn. There's not very many choices here in the second thing. Masquerader, the recognition seeker, the wanderer. And so, like, here's the masquerader. Life is complicated, enough for those who have only one lifetime. For mummies, it can dissolve into chaos if too many things from too many pasts all come home to roost at once. And at the bottom, each of these, it tells you how to regain willpower. Regain one willpower point whenever you resolve a situation without anyone finding out or even suspecting that you are more than just an ordinary mortal. Extraordinary circumstances, such as successfully explaining away the use of magic or possession of arcane ancient knowledge, may merit extra points. So it's basically like, yeah, let me resolve this situation with without people finding out who I am. And there are others as well. And then you have different abilities, your skills and knowledges and things like that. And they're listed as dots. It's a very common thing. How many dots do you have? One dot, you're a student. It goes from student, college, master, doctorate, scholar, basically. Or, in other words, novice, practiced, competent, expert, and master. And there's some World of Darkness style games where you're rolling like a bucket of D10s. Because each one you roll a D10, you don't add them together, but you need to beat a difficulty number, usually 6 or 7. We as a group used to pick the number 7 and then move 7 up and down based on how difficult it was, or if there's any modifiers to it. And then the number of successes you get, you can have a blended success. So 1 success, you barely did it. 3 successes, yes, you did it completely, and then 5 successes was like a critical. Like, not only did you do it, but you gained this extra thing. But that's how we did it anyway. So here we have explanation of basically your character's traits and skills. In Mummy, there are virtues, and your 3 virtues are integrity, joy, and memory. And so, and then you can use those virtues to navigate your interpersonal emotional world. So maybe you are confronted with, again, you used to, 1,000 years ago, you were enslaved by this pharaoh. Today, you see that same person on the street and you're a CEO of a major corporation, and you may be confronted, kind of similar to sanity in Call of Cthulhu. You may be confronted with reliving the past or something of that nature. And so you can ask for like memory, joy, or integrity rolls. Yeah, memory. What is your fondest childhood memory? And the most painful? Who would you be if you lost one of them? Memory is of vital importance to mummies. And under joy is no less vital than memory. If memory is what keeps mummies from losing who they are, then joy is what keeps them from grounded in the present and gives them the will to carry on lifetime after lifetime. Essentially, joy is like hope, it's perseverance, and then there's integrity, keeping your mind when your body is no longer there. And then you have you got your magic, your Sekhem, your Ba and Ka are like scores related to your spirit, and it will protect your body and your spirit from shredding in the afterlife and before you come back. And there's merits and flaws, different types of merits and flaws to add extra details to your character. Integrity, but let's get to some of the magic, because I know that's what we'd love. Oh, derangements. I think in the present day we've changed the idea of like insanity and madness and derangements, but they still exist in the old World of Darkness. I think we have a more cultivated look at mental deficiencies today and people on the spectrum and such. But if you'd still like to use those tables and recontextualize them, you could still use those. Basically, it's going, instead of having physical harm in the World of Darkness games, you can suffer mental harm as well, and carry those wounds around with you. And that's where derangements come from. And in Mummy the Resurrection, you can get memory, joy, and integrity derangements. So, things such as amnesia, denial, antipathy, nightmares, obsessiveness, bitterness, catatonia, things like that. And let's see if we can get to some artwork or something. Here it just talks about like having a violent death, healing, the mechanics involved in your rebirth, and how do you suffer true death if a mummy can't really die, and whatnot. So here we get into our magic pads, and let me get to your comments here. Says, I thought that would be a bigger deal every time a traveler changes anything in the past. Yeah. Yeah. Because it can get time travel is one of those things like where it can get pretty complicated. Hey, Heathen, what's up? Yeah, time travel is one of those things where you're like, hey, this sounds like a great idea, and then if you are a writer and you have to take into account non-linear events, it's like, yeah, that's why travelers show they're like, I thought that would be a bigger deal, like murder, killing yourself or something like that. It's like, yeah, well, whatever. Shice says, oh, thanks there, Heathen. Says, it looks fun. In Andrew's Mummy game, the crux of the plot was the mummy realized that the supernatural force that was supposed to be the big bad was actually his brother and not a straight up bad guy. And that's kind of cool thing, right? Like, just because you're immortal doesn't make you singular. What if there are other people who've come back? And remember, in the world of darkness, those other people don't need to be other immortals. They can be vampires or mages, spirits like wraiths or something like that. So you can kind of mix and match and have some fun with it. And it's always fun to surprise players with like, yeah, you're not the only badass in this world. Yeah. Can you roll 4 in intelligence to be? No, not that. No. It's, well, I guess you could play someone who's not that bright. This is a point by system game, so it unless you're choosing to be like low intelligence or something like that, I wouldn't suggest it. Yeah, David Spooks. Yep, 5th edition. The 5th edition of World of Darkness has really cleaned up the mental health tables. It's a lot less cringy to read through. Now, I think what you're seeing for like the mental health tables from ye olden days is not a description of the mental health trauma, but a side effect of that thing. So instead of telling someone that you are, and you're looking at, what's the book called? DD, the book that literally psychologists use to describe different mental health issues. So instead of having that, what they have are, you have this trait and you get to describe how you got that trait. Like maybe you are forgetful, or you break out into uncontrolled anger, or you relive elements of your past, right? Now, what psychological condition is that? We may not know. So yeah, and they've cleaned, like you said, they have cleaned that up. So I agree with you. I always want to pronounce this haiku, and it's not haiku, it's heikau, Hekau spells, and my mind keeps going to haiku, and it's not a haiku. Anyway, these are the I was about to say vampiric. These are the immortal powers of ancient Egypt, and I kind of like it. It's so some of them are like alchemy. We players love ourselves alchemists, herbalists, apothecaries, and whatnot. And yes, you can do the same thing in this, using like ancient alchemical formula to create different potions or elixirs or salves or powders. Heck, even smoke and poisons and whatnot. There are amulets that you can make for protection and to ward off different effects. There is celestial magic to control like the weather and stars and mines, kind of. And there are ushabti, which are like small figurines that can become larger versions of figurines, and they are like little small servants that you can create as well. And there's other magics, but definitely, embracing the idea of like Egyptian magic and the flavor of Egyptian magic. Talks about the rules for it, alchemy, how to prepare your alchemical formula. Of course, you need a place to do it, and you can come up with. There are like suggested names for some of those alchemical formula, and what happens if you botch a roll, you make a mistake, and of course, getting together some of the ingredients that you have to make those perfumes, potions, simple tonics, things like that. Here's one. And they have kind of funky, really cool names. 100,000 tongues. Anybody guess what that one is? Potion of vile body. Yeah, the character's blood is poisonous to any vampire who drinks it. The character can spit a contact poison. Yeah, potion of valor. Things like that. Blood of the snake, etc., etc. So that's alchemical stuff. Then we get into amulets and wards, basically. Now, some of them aren't ward-like, but for the most part, they ward off something like mental intrusion or ensuring that you're never surprised and things like that. Scarabs, charms, invisibility to animals, amulet of cloud walking, a metal ward, making bullets and metal blades deflect away from you, things like that. Celestial magic is weather and water and look, there. Read the stars, weather magic, call the stars, read the tree of life. Look at him hanging up under the thing. That's a cool artwork. I like the starkness of that artwork. Apep thrashes the ground, earthquakes, etc. Necromancy, forgot about necromancy. Duh, gotta have necromancy in here, right? Banish the dead, navigating the afterlife, animating a corpse. Renhaku is the most powerful of the Egyptian sorcerers were those with command over Ren or true names. And then there are true names, so that gives you a list of true names here, body and animals and whatnot. And the more simplistic the thing is, if you have the true name, the more easily you can control that thing. So a specific human being, you would have to learn their specific true name. Very difficult to get. But something like elephant or dog or hippopotamus or rat or something, if you have the true name of a rat, then you pretty much have the true name of all rats, because it's simplistic. And the same thing with inanimate objects, stones, trees, water, that kind of stuff. Like here we have one, Forgetting the Stone. This spell can be used on any named mineral or metal. The magician must invoke an utterance of forgetting, along with the substance name, and reality forgets that the substance exists, thereby destroying the substance. Each casting affects a cubic meter of material. So it's basically, if you have a true name, you may have control over whether it even exists or not, or control it or bend it to your will, whatnot. And then there's even ones for the body, like the backbone, heart, eyes, face, head, phallus, etc. Yeah, true name magic is very powerful, and you can even have a quest for the players to gain or find someone's true name, like some kind of fiendish immortal being going around trying to kill everybody that learned its true name because it was released or it's in a book somewhere or something like that. Command the beast, becoming the animal, command the thinking, fortify flesh. And then here's our last magical power, Ushabde. And you can create like these little figurines for like lesser creatures. What's Dritz Guinevere? The Black Panther is like it would be an Ushabti, basically a figurine that becomes real. Little servitors, some of them are small, like little stone statues. Then you can make them bigger and larger, more powerful. Greater bonds, relics. You could have like a scarab walk in, and you can see through its eyes, stuff like that. And then we get into the underworld. traveling through the underworld, what it means. The If the players really do want to get into the idea of going to a fantastical underworld to have to come back, afterlife beliefs in ancient Egypt, and going in the underworld in the Egyptological mythology is uh, it's not just visiting a place randomly. It is a challenge to you to overcome some kind of psychological limitation you have before returning back to the reality. Rebirth. The one way of doing it is to have your other player characters represent individuals in your past, if you would like to do it that way. Not everybody's into that, but this describes how to go into underworld and how to come back. You get multitasking. Uber mummies. Yeah. Here we have, face it, mummies are pretty much impossible to get rid of. Nuke their cot, and they get to carry on in the underworld. Throw them into danger after danger, and they just keep coming back, even from seeming oblivion. It just doesn't seem fair, does it? If you're worried about balance, don't be. Mummies can heal their corpora more easily than wraiths can, but they also have less corpus to heal. Furthermore, pathos, the spiritual fuel of a wraith, is considerably easier to replenish than Ba is. Mummies who endanger themselves too often will find themselves drawing upon Ba, which is part of their soul, to heal themselves. And this very same Ba is necessary to rejuvenate the dead Khat, Khat, thereby forestalling resurrection. So don't think that your mummy is hell on wheels. He can be slowed down just like any other character and put out of commission story-wise quite easily. A storyteller who wants to avoid underworld chronicles might just say that your dead mummy character is out of the story for a few centuries and that it is time to create a new, more careful character. Likewise, a Ba, or part of your spirit, who throws itself into danger can face the withering, a time period completely in the hands of the storyteller. And remember, many mummies are immortality as a curse. There's almost no escape from immortality. Only the most powerful magics can truly destroy a mummy, and few individuals have the means to perform such feats. So, just a little blurb about, like, what the hell you can do in a game. The many faces of rebirth are basically other cultures that have immortals in their. Yeah, it's so funny. Mm-mm. It was the DSM. I couldn't remember the book, DSM, for the mental issues. Come on, there must have been a few special needs pharaohs back in the day. Maybe not. Maybe I could see that, or something that happened afterwards. Yeah, break out to spontaneous song and dance numbers. Doo-doo, 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 doo-doo. Officer Crumpy. I can imagine a low intelligence mummy if they were made as more of a punishment, made them more like a zombie. Yeah, I could see that. I could see absolutely a servant of Apophos, the worm, Set. Yeah, potion of vile body. That's what they're putting in the food these days. I agree with that. Might be fun to have a cult dedicated to destroying vampires, werewolves, and other types of things. I agree with that too. Yeah, just you could straight up do this as immortal hunters, right? Ancient hunter could have been made into a mummy with anti-vampire themed powers. Absolutely, absolutely. What is it? Buffy the Vampire Slayer kind of fits into this. If For those who don't know, there has always been a Slayer whenever there were vampires, and then if the Slayer dies, another Slayer will come into being. And the television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Buffy happened to be the brand new Slayer. And then during the course of the television show, her heart stops temporarily. A new Slayer is created, and then she comes back to life. So there end up being two Slayers. Oh, okay. You guys have a great day, evening, everyone. Yep. Thank you there, Drew, and everyone else. Killer 7 Gamer says, looks like a fun game. Yeah, hey, what's up? Yeah, it's pretty cool, and especially what we're doing is like not not Dungeons and Dragons games, and what you can do with that. Right? Chad says, "What happens if they just light you on fire?" Well, not remember. While you are a badass, you're still mortal. So without your magical powers, you burn up. So it's not like you're not a Terminator. You are a supernatural mortal being. So you might have higher strength and endurance and some magical abilities, but it doesn't make you immune to everything. So you kind of have to be careful. Now you will come back. You may not come back in that body because you just burned the body up, as an example. But you could come back as a lady of the night. You could come back as someone who's woken up from a coma in the hospital. You could come back as a relative of the person that was just killed. Maybe you come back when the police show up and they kill take down the person who just lit you on fire. Maybe you come back as the person who just killed you, which would be pretty interesting. The police not only are like, wait a minute, did this person just wake up? And you're like, damn it, did I come back in the body of the person who killed me? What the hell is this? What the hell is this about? But mind you, that would be by choice. You're never forced into that. But what interesting storylines, right? Imagine coming back as an immortal in the body of a serial killer, and you're being hunted this entire time. And now part of your journey is to make amends for the lives you stole, even though technically you weren't the serial killer, but you're in the body of the serial killer. So maybe that serial killer's mind is kind of commingled with yours and whatnot. Yeah, I mean, there's many great storylines you can play in this game. These are some of the very important, powerful individuals in the world. It just gives you some examples of it. And then here we have a character sheet. World of Darkness does this a lot, where they give you character sheets and a very simple, like, hey, instead of you spending 3 hours to make up a character, pick one of these, grab it, maybe change one or two things, and let's get started. So here we have the archaeologist. Kind of cool to be an immortal archaeologist, right? Always uncovering secrets, maybe even trying to uncover your own past. If you're a character that doesn't remember their entire past. And here we have the dots. Remember, if you remember previously, I did it wrong. Can't do it. Okay, so your attributes, your physical, social, and mental attributes are not associated with a specific ability below. So you take an attribute, physical, social, or mental, any of those, take one of those, and then it's combined with one of your abilities, either a talent, a skill, or a knowledge, and then that's how many dice you roll. And you can make the case that to do the same thing, you can use different attributes. I made the case of trying to move through a crowd of people while not being seen. So is that dexterity plus subterfuge, right? Trying to slowly move through a thing, or is that charisma plus stealth? Most people go, well, is that a stealth action? I'm going to use my dex plus stealth. Sure. But another character may say, hey, listen, I don't need to be stealthy. I just need to blend in. So maybe it's appearance plus streetwise. And if you can make that case as a story, for me as a storyteller, and you make the case because you kind of want to use your best ability, right? And you go, hey, can I use my wits, because this character has a high wit score. I want to use my wits plus subterfuge to move through the crowd. And I go, okay, all right, I'll go with you on that. And then you just roll some dice. It's a little difficult to break the game, especially at these lower levels, because if you notice in the character sheet, the highest score you can get is 5. So the most dice you can roll is 10 plus a few more because of spending certain resources. So it's not quite the biggest bucket of D10s, but there are some people who are able to manipulate that. But anyway, here we have a vampire impersonator, which is kind of fun. You're an immortal, but you're impersonating vampires. Kind of cool there. a Garou friend. The Garou are werewolves, the changing folk. You may be a friend of them living out in the wilds, an immortal being living. As a matter of fact, with this image here, it very much reminds me of Maquahito, Aztec, the Aztec tabletop role playing game, white box role playing game. Kind of reminds me of that, living out there. And you may be immortal, but you might, forego all modern technology or something. The recently reborn. You believe in the system. All right, Horus. All right, Osiris, Isis, tell me what to do, and I will do such a thing. And then here's the storytelling chapter about the world of darkness, some best practices, different kinds of chronicles. I forget what they call these chronicles. Certain kind of concepts for your chronicles and such. Let me see if we have some names here. Reborn Chronicles, Integrated Chronicles, Crossover Chronicles, Book of Ages, some mortal characters and playing some mortal characters. One cool idea here, and I wish the role-playing game Ars Magica, which I believe had a successful Kickstarter to bring it into Creative Commons, but something that I really liked in Ars Magica that I wish other games would do is a cast of mortal characters. So in World of Darkness, mortal characters are for the most part weaker than anybody else you'll play. But if you have a player who likes to jump in and out of a game, or you want to hand them 2 or 3 lower powered characters that are the entourage of some of the other more powerful characters, you can have these and pick them. And when we played many of these games, each of us made a mortal character, but they didn't belong to us. It was like you could pick them randomly and use them, especially when one or more of our more powerful characters were out of action. Like a vampire, when the vampires are asleep during the day, who do you play? And you still want to run a game in the daylight. Well, we would run mortals and ghouls and things like that, and it can be kind of fun, especially when you're like the underdog. The mortal character, sometimes you can get away with things that other characters can't, and it's kind of the children of Apophos. Of course, they're the mutated ones. Frog tongue, body barbs, stomach pumper, toxic secretions. Yeah, Bane mummies. I'm sorry. Any other ones here? Devour. These are basically stat blocks. My only problem with World of Darkness, and it has always been my problem with World of Darkness, is their stat blocks are, for me, a little bit too ginormous. I mean, Amon the Devourer is kind of all of this, and then some of these abilities you got to look up and stuff. That's my only problem with World of Darkness. I used to default to basically having a few numbers, like an NPC would basically be 3 different numbers. I would never tell anybody this. It was my cheat code. So I'd pick one number for their average abilities. I'd pick another number for their lowest ability, and then another number for their highest abilities. And then I would just use those dice. So like maybe their average is 4, their lowest is 2, their highest is like an 8 for their special abilities. And then I would just roll those dice for that thing. And just never tell the players that I did that. Egyptian names. Good to have something like that in there, and the character sheet, so and whatnot. So yep. It was a winter 2011 and 2012 Vampire the Masquerade V20 companion. Wow, it's been a while since we had a new version of these games, and there's some people who absolutely positively swear by one version or another of the World of Darkness games, whether it's like the Requiem games, anything in between. Yeah, Mummy the Vampire Impersonator trying to be sexy as a corpse. Yeah. Your obfuscation. You're thinking of the vampire power. Dude, I've been wake up as a cop solving his own murder. I love that. Yeah, absolutely. And wake up wake up in the morgue and slide your, where the hell am I? And you're like trying to solve your own murder, and then the other cops are like, where'd he go? Yeah. Yeah. Killer 7 Gamers says, I've been DMing for D&D for 4 years, but looking to try a new system. Is there any you recommend to make a dark horror campaign? Ooh, don't ask me that. Okay. First, it depends on how far away from Dungeons and Dragons you want to go. One is how far away from the rules set do you want to go for dark horror, and then how far away dark horror do you want to go? So if I have a suggestion, I would suggest, off the top of my head, 3 tabletop role-playing games that are very similar to the numbers and things you would roll for Dungeons and Dragons. So, Morkborg is one that will smack you in the face. It literally is described as a spiked mail to the face, and I would suggest that for a very dark, like moody kind of game. The game is literally set up that at some point the world will end. There's also Shadow Dark, which is very popular now. It's basically, Shadow Dark is the new OSR game. So it is based very much off of 5th edition. It is shrunk down to very simplistic rules, but it is very lethal, and darkness, like literally dungeon crawling in the dark, is very dangerous in Shadow Dark. And there's lots of like randomizing roll tables if your players are into not knowing what the hell's going to happen next. And then Crown and Skull is another dark one. Man, I'm trying to think. Now, if you want to get away from D20, you can absolutely positively grab up anything that says Cthulhu on it. so yeah, you could do that. I like this idea, waking up as a cop. Is that the Hodor guy? Hold the door? I don't know. I think I passed somebody. I wonder if I could get a DM to let me have a werewolf cult. I don't know. Depends on what kind of game you're running. I don't know. Yeah. Oh no. How about Lovecraftian fake Egyptian names? Okay. All right. Let's see if I can pronounce this. Nyarlathotep. N-Y-A. Nyarlathotep. Shit. I'm gonna go insane just trying to pronounce it. That's a great cheat sheet for stat block. Yeah. I got tired of looking it up, and I was just like, fuck. Okay. This NPC, their average score is like 5 dice, right? And that could be anything. That could be like, well, their intelligence is 3 and their skill in computers is 2. The players didn't know. They didn't know. And then if I felt like, the computer programmer was weak in something, like their endurance or whatever, I'd give them a 2. And then their like specialty was like computer programming. I gave them like an 8. Yeah, something like that. 8 dice or something, whatever. Yeah, I used to do that. Cheating. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I remember Hodor. Yeah. Oh yeah. I remember. Hodor was driven insane by having seen his own death in the future. So, yeah. Hey guys, have a great one. Not quite role-playing as we are used to, but I love to try playing 10 Candles. 10 Candles. Ooh, yeah. 10 Candles is dark. 10 Candles, Dread is a good one for horror. They're a 7 gamer. Yeah. Trying to think of another horror-themed game. It's difficult to get horror because you need to instill fear in the player characters, and a lot of players want to be badasses, so it's very difficult to do that. But if they're into it, and or there's a reward system for running hiding, cowering, bargaining, using resources, then you'll get more of a horror theme in your game. If they have limited resources, limited places to hide, limited ability to attack and confront enemies one-on-one, you'll get a greater propensity for like, we can't challenge this on our own. We need to be creative. The OSR gaming is kind of like that if you kind of think about it. It's a little bit like that. Let me see if I can find. Oh, that's Morkborg Barebones edition. I don't have Morkborg? A digital Morkborg? Huh. I guess not. All right, guys. So thank you very much for letting me show this off to you. I really appreciate it. Showing off Mummy second edition. There are different iterations of this, but they're similar in how they are used as well. And also with Mummy, you can tell a lot of games out of time by going, maybe if some players don't show up, you could go back in time and tell a story that doesn't have high stakes, but fills in the gap of a player's origin. Again, playing a character that's solving their own murder, playing a character that introducing NPCs that recognize the player character, but the player character is trying to piece together their own origin story. Like, who knows me? Can I trust these people who claim to be my friends, but they aren't? That kind of thing could be very interesting. Returning to life as a person who has a great secret that could affect a society or a culture or a government or a faction. And then now that player has that secret, even though they didn't mean to have that secret. Returning back to life and bringing back with them great evils that should have remained in the underworld that are now present in this land. Like, maybe the player character returns to life, and when they awaken, a number of people around them also awaken who are like Bane mummies or evil creatures or spirits or whatever the case might be. And now the player, we've seen this in some serialized television shows where it's like, yeah, I'm evil, but there's a greater evil out there and I need to stop it. I need to, get back the artifacts. I need to put back those people and put them back in their place. And so very much you can play that with Mummy. Also with Mummy, because they've lived through many time periods, maybe they were the cause of something that has existed for a couple of 100 years and they're now here to stop it. Like, for example, what if in the past there was a verdant jungle, but today it is a desert and there are people starving in this region? Maybe the players want to solve that because in their battle 500 years ago, they caused this problem. Now, today we might call it climate change, or we may say that there was like a chemical spill or something. Maybe the player characters were responsible for that. Lastly, the players may have visions of the future and know what happened in the past, and they become like eco-terrorists or want to stop great evils, even though the public doesn't know that. So when the players are running around like murder, killing innocent people, the players have the sight, right? They're like, I know this person has an evil demon in them and made a deal, but the public doesn't know that. So they could, you could play characters on the run. There's so many different ideas. And again, I like the idea that this isn't Dungeons and Dragons. Like, if you notice, a lot of this isn't really about treasure grabbing. Now, sure, there's some throat punching, but it's always fun to throat punch somebody some days, So yeah. Hey, Killer 7 Gamer, if you don't mind, come back here. We do this 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I don't know what time it is in your time zone. Come on back and we'll talk about it. Now, what I'm doing now is going around the world and going to different regions of our planet and finding role-playing games that kind of emulate that grow from their history, are created from their culture, the region, hopefully created by people from that place, from around the world. And I'm kind of showcasing some of the games that I found. Now, it doesn't mean they're the best games, But if you know some games from places around the world where you say, hey, I'm from Madagascar, I'm from Burma, I'm from Thailand, and there's a role-playing game we play here that's really like historical or culturally focused or something like that, I sure would love to drop a link for those. Let me know where to find them, and we will go forward from there. I've got one. Let's see, we were in Egypt. We can go to, I'm gonna toss this up. We might either go to Israel or India. I'm not certain yet. Maybe India. Yeah. Maybe we'll go to India for this one. So, guys, have a great one. Thank you very much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for stopping by. For those who are here, we do simulcast over here on. And also, if you don't mind, so guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. If you come this long, you might as well just like subscribe, whatever. We go daily 6 a.m. ish Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday ish. And we talk about role playing games, and we world build, we show off things, and just have a great time, and try to have a lot of like mind fuel for our games. Kind of like hanging out just before, just after a game, and it's just unscripted and goodness. So, guys, have a great one. I'll see you later. Peace, tranquility.